one of Hollywood's most controversial legends, yet somehow still framed as flawless, untouchable, a golden age king frozen in time. Behind the polished smile and studio-crafted perfection, whispers kept sliding through back rooms and private halls, truths so risky they were never meant for daylight. Stories not about trophies or standing ovations, but about forbidden desires, sealed letters, and private choices that cracked trust and sparked quiet betrayal. There were rumors of a tape, a final recording never released. Not a victory lap, not praise, but something heavier, something that couldn't survive the spotlight. Because when the curtain drops, even legends bleed secrets. On screen, Paul Newman was pure fire, untouchable in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, ice cold and sharp in The Hustler, dangerous without trying. And in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he wasn't just acting cool, he was the blueprint. Off-screen, the myth only grew bigger. A 50-year marriage to Joanne Woodward, the love story Hollywood swore was unbreakable, untarnished, untouchable. He gave away hundreds of millions through philanthropy, drove race cars at 180 miles per hour like fear didn't exist, then turned around and read bedtime stories to his kids like the calmest man alive. To the world, Paul Newman was perfection walking, the rare figure who floated above Hollywood's mess without getting his hands dirty. But in this town, perfection is the most dangerous illusion of all. Behind that flawless image, the whispers told a different type of story. No wild brawls, no public meltdowns. Instead, secret letters that vanished. People who quietly disappeared. Feelings and desires too risky to ever say out loud. And in his final days, the talk wasn't about awards or legacy. It was about a confession. Not a will, not memories. A confession tied to a secret list. Names he refused to speak while alive. So who was on that list and why did he guard it like a locked vault until the very end? Tonight, it starts with the first name, Marlon Brando, a story soaked in intensity, desire, and quiet suffering. They crossed paths in 1961 at a glittering Beverly Hilton gala, chandeliers glowing, cameras flashing, Hollywood royalty everywhere. Newman arrived with Joanne Woodward, polished, composed, picture perfect. Brando showed up late, wrinkled shirt, loose collar, eyes sharp and unreadable. He didn't just notice Newman, he circled him like a shadow, watching, measuring. Then it happened. Brando leaned in and murmured, "I thought you'd be as boring as the papers make you. Turns out you're the only one here who isn't pretending." For a man like Paul Newman, disciplined, guarded, allergic to flattery, those words hit hard, a crack in the armor. And instead of shutting it down, he let it breathe. From there, their paths didn't just cross, they collided, quietly, privately, away from the cameras. And that's where the real story began. Coffee and silence, Westwood cafes where the waiters learned not to see a thing, long nights drifting through Silver Lake, their reflections sliding together across dark water like secrets that refuse to separate. Sudden escapes to Palm Springs, tucked inside rented villas where the curtains stayed shut and the world stayed out. For Newman, it felt like love, raw, heavy, undeniable, and impossible to dodge. For Brando, it was something else entirely. Brando never loved the way other people did. He couldn't. To him, even desire was just another role to play. He pulled Newman into rooms packed with strangers, producers, journalists, men dangling vague promises of films, awards, influence. At first, Newman thought it was just the scene, just Hollywood being Hollywood. Then the truth landed hard. He wasn't a partner, he was a prop, a supporting character in Brando's endless performance for attention. And then came the betrayal. Newman's handwritten letters, soft, personal, painfully vulnerable, somehow landed in the hands of gossip reporters. Soon, an anonymous column hit the streets. A blue-eyed family man torn between a picture-perfect marriage and a forbidden affair with a dark-haired icon. No names printed, but nobody needed them. Hollywood read between every line. Some whispered Brando himself slipped those letters into a newsroom just to shake the room. Others swore Newman's words were read aloud at smoky late-night gatherings in Laurel Canyon, passed around like a script for Brando's amusement, because Brando didn't just crave attention, he needed it. His name in print, his face in headlines, his legend fed by fire, even if someone else burned down with it. That someone was Newman. Joanne found one of the letters tucked inside a book. She didn't yell, she didn't leave. She quietly wrote her husband a note. "If you need refuge, I'm here, but if you need another lie, I can't help you." Those words cut deeper than any scandal. Newman kept that note folded away for years, a reminder of what silence costs. That winter in Connecticut was brutal. Neighbors said he barely left the house. His daughter later recalled waking at night to see him pacing the porch, freezing air biting his face, cigarette glowing faintly in the dark. He never explained. No one asked. Everyone already knew the whispers never stopped. They turned darker. Midnight calls from Brando that went unanswered. Envelopes slipped under Newman's door with photographs too blurry to prove, too suggestive to ignore. Some claimed they'd seen images of the two together, but those pictures vanished fast. Destroyed, buried, erased by power. No one could say. Newman carried it alone. On a tape said to be recorded in his final days, his voice trembled as he admitted, "I thought if I loved him long enough, he would change." But he didn't. He turned every feeling into a tool, and I let him turn me into one. I loved him in a way no one should love anyone. Those words said everything. Their story didn't explode in public chaos. No screaming breakup, no press conference. It ended in silence. Newman stopped answering calls, stopped writing letters, stopped believing love could change a man who never wanted to be changed. But silence doesn't erase pain. For years, Newman carried that scar. Because some wounds don't heal, they just hide. And Marlon Brando, the most magnetic, most dangerous man in Hollywood, was only the first name on that list. The second name on Newman's hidden list was Steve McQueen. If Brando was a storm of seduction and betrayal, McQueen was straight fire, relentless, consuming, impossible to tame. A blaze that lit up everything around it and burned anyone who got too close. Newman once described him with just 2 words, that menace. Not casually, not joking, but like decades of rage finally spilling out. Because McQueen wasn't just another secret. He was a scar Newman carried for life. Some say it started in the shadows of an awards night. Newman, the polished family man. McQueen, raw, hungry, and watching. That stare was impossible to ignore. Defiant, intense, almost possessive. The kind of look that told Newman his life was about to shift in ways he couldn't undo. What began as fleeting encounters slid fast into something dangerous. Stolen hours in dim hotel rooms. Staff whispering about the blue-eyed star who slipped in after midnight and vanished before dawn. Rumors spread of shouting matches that ended in eerie silence, broken only by glass smashing against walls. Neighbors talked about doors slamming, voices rising, a presence in hallways that left chills long after it passed. For Newman, it was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. For McQueen, it was never love, it was possession. He didn't just want Newman close, he wanted to own him. To prove that even Hollywood's golden husband could be bent, cracked, and claimed. Soon, whispers leaked to the press. Hints of McQueen's unusual friendships popped up in gossip columns almost overnight. McQueen fired back by staging flashy public appearances with glamorous women, big smiles, loud laughs, a challenge to anyone daring to question him. Behind closed doors, Newman found himself boxed in. A legal document slid across a table. A low whisper followed. "You've got a wife, a daughter. Don't destroy them just because you can't control yourself." It wasn't just intimidation, it was control. Stories vanished before they ever hit print. Reporters went quiet. Editors suddenly changed their tone. Some claim McQueen had allies buried deep in studios and tabloids, people ready to erase anything for the right price. And when McQueen wanted to twist the blade, he did it in public. In one interview, asked about a man who had once been obsessed with him, McQueen smirked and said, "I don't remember his name. Probably some overzealous fan, the creepy kind who sends letters and knocks on your door late at night." Newman heard it, and he understood instantly. McQueen hadn't just denied him. He turned their intimacy into a joke. Their rivalry spilled onto film sets. To the world, it looked like 2 stars fighting for the spotlight. But behind the curtain, it was personal, raw, and ruthless. Newman once confronted him, voice shaking with fury. "Why did you make me look unstable to everyone?" McQueen just smiled, opened a drawer, and tossed out a cassette tape, just in case. Whispers say he kept dozens of them. Every confession, every argument, every weakness Newman ever revealed, locked away like ammunition. Some claimed they were stored in a box under his bed, a private arsenal no one dared touch. Then came the gift, a box left at McQueen's doorstep. Inside, a torn shirt from a night blurred by whiskey and rage. Fabric stained, the scent of liquor still clinging. Faint lipstick marks pressed into the collar. Some swore the shirt wasn't alone, that there was also a single Polaroid inside. The image too damaged to read clearly, but disturbing enough to rattle McQueen. It wasn't nostalgia, it was a warning. On a tape said to be recorded in his final days, Newman confessed, "He used love like a weapon. Every embrace cut deeper, and still I went back. I loved him even knowing he'd destroy me if I got too close. There was no clean break, no goodbye, no closure." Newman retreated into silence while McQueen paraded a picture-perfect life for the cameras. But silence doesn't erase fire. It leaves smoke, ash, and scars. And as Newman staggered away from that blaze, another figure appeared on the horizon. Softer, warmer, but no less dangerous to his heart. Hollywood adored them on screen. They were the perfect match, two outlaws riding straight into legend. Their chemistry felt effortless, almost destined. Newman, the sharp charmer with piercing blue eyes. Redford, the cool rebel with danger in his smile. The world saw brotherhood and brilliance. But behind that glow, another story was quietly forming. But whispers said the cameras only caught half the truth. Because when the crew wrapped for the day, when the lights went dark and the canyons fell quiet, something else sparked between them. Something unscripted, something forbidden. A lighting technician later claimed he walked past Redford's motel balcony late one night and saw Newman standing there, cigarette burning low, eyes red like he'd been waiting too long. Moments later, the door opened. Redford pulled him inside, and they vanished into the dark. The technician never spoke about it again, but he never forgot it either. Others on set noticed the smaller signs. Newman lingering after scenes, his hand brushing Redford's shoulder just a beat too long. Redford's eyes tracking Newman when he thought no one was watching. Weekend disappearances explained with excuses that never lined up. A driver once said he was told to drop them at opposite ends of a canyon trail. By sunrise, they came back together, silent, side by side, inseparable. For Newman, it was more than attraction. It was love. Fragile, dangerous, impossible, but real. In a tape whispered to exist, he confessed, "We both had families, reputations, lives built for the public. But when it was just us, I loved him in a way that fit nowhere else. I waited for the day he'd love me in the light like he did in the shadows." That day never came. Redford was careful, always careful. To the press, he stayed golden, the all-American hero, the family man. And when whispers of their closeness began leaking out, he made his choice. Silence, distance, protection. Some journalists claimed Newman had once prepared to tell the truth, but just before the word surfaced, stories appeared, vicious ones, painting Newman as unstable, erratic, even dangerous. No names printed, but the message was loud. His career slowed, invitations dried up, and through it all, Redford never spoke a word in his defense. There were darker whispers too, anonymous faxes sent to editors, late-night phone calls warning people off. Nothing traceable, nothing provable, just enough pressure to shut doors quietly. Fragments of Newman's private journal were described but never shown. One line cut deeper than any headline. "The man who called me light now uses me as shadow." The betrayal wasn't explosive. It was cold, calculated. Redford didn't just deny Newman, he erased him. And still, the silence between them screamed louder than any scandal. At award shows, when asked about Newman, Redford would smile politely, change the subject, and walk away. That smile broke Newman more than any rumor ever could. One crew member from a later collaboration said he caught Newman staring across a crowded room, eyes locked, silently begging for acknowledgement. Redford glanced back, then turned away, leaving Newman frozen in a pain only two people could understand. Their story didn't end with a fight or a breakup. It ended with deliberate distance, a silence that stretched for decades, a silence Newman carried to his grave. Because betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it comes with a stage smile, a handshake for cameras, and a silence that lets the other person bleed alone. The world celebrated their partnership, but behind the curtain lived a secret that shattered Newman in ways no audience ever saw. But Redford wasn't the last name. The silence he left behind was soon filled by someone younger, wilder, a rebel whose star burned too bright to last, a restless soul gone far too soon. Have you guessed it? James Dean! Not the loudest scandal in Newman's life, but the one that cut the deepest. A love that began with admiration, grew into something undeniable, and ended in heartbreak that haunted him forever. They met in Hollywood's shadowed machine. Two men framed as rivals but pulled together like magnets. On set, people joked they looked like reflections of the same star. Newman, steady, polished, with a wife and a carefully built life. And Dean, raw, untamed, burning fast toward the edge. Dean was younger, raw, reckless, a living flame daring the world to watch him burn. When his eyes first locked with Newman's, it wasn't rivalry, it was recognition. Something unspoken passed between them, something that followed Newman home and refused to let him sleep. They slipped into each other's worlds quietly. Midnight diner booths with jukeboxes humming low, long drives down forgotten highways and Dean's silver Porsche, headlights slicing through the dark like secrets on the run. Hidden afternoons and borrowed cabins where rehearsed lines slowly turned into confessions no one else would ever hear. After a rain-soaked premiere, Dean once whispered, "I don't need anyone to understand me. I just need you not to pretend." Newman didn't answer. He pressed Dean's hand to his chest instead, letting his heartbeat say what his mouth never could. But Hollywood never lets beauty last. One night, a crew member swore he saw them through a fogged car window. Faces too close to be just friends. A photograph was rumored to exist. It vanished before anyone could confirm it. Still, whispers tore through studio hallways. A blind item appeared. 2 silver screen rebels sharing more than a script. No names printed, none needed. In Hollywood, knowing is enough to destroy. Calls stopped coming. Invitations dried up. Then came the warnings. Subtle, cold. Newman found an unmarked envelope under his door. Inside, a matchbook from a Sunset Boulevard bar with a message scratched inside the flap. Careful. Stars burn out fastest in the dark. Others spoke of a late-night call. Newman alone in his kitchen. A raspy voice said, "If you want to live, forget him." The glass in his hand slipped and shattered across the floor. Dean unraveled. His calls grew frantic, his nights longer, his silence darker. Newman once drove across town at 3 a.m., pounding on Dean's door until his knuckles split. No answer. Only a scrap of paper slid beneath the door. "If loving you is wrong, then I don't deserve to live." Days later, Dean collapsed. The press softened it. Exhaustion, stress, another Hollywood breakdown. Newman knew better. Guilt wrapped around him like a second skin. Dean begged for truth. Newman clung to silence, family, reputation, the cage built around his life. Then came the final plea, Mexico, Friday. "If you don't come, I'll understand." Newman bought the ticket. He even drove to the airport. But fear outweighed love. He turned back. And then it was too late. The wrecked Porsche was dragged into a garage, a twisted coffin of steel and glass. Some whispered Newman went there in secret, begging to see it. The mechanic refused, but slipped him a shard from the rearview mirror. Cracked, specked with blood, impossible to forget. 24 years old, gone in an instant. Radios across America broke the news. Newman sat frozen, staring at his hands. In a recording said to be made near his own death, he whispered just one question. "Why didn't I get on that plane?" No tears, no shaking voice, just silence. He never spoke Dean's name again, but friends swore that on lonely nights, when the whiskey glass sat empty, Newman would stare at the ceiling and whisper, "I'm sorry, you should have lived," tucked away in his bedside drawer until the very end was a single keepsake, a faded silver handkerchief. No one knew how he got it. Everyone knew who it belonged to. The next name wasn't a megastar, not a Billboard legend, not someone who dominated rooms like the others. It was someone Hollywood tried to forget, someone fragile, someone painfully real, Sal Mineo. By the mid-70s, Newman still looked perfect to the world, polite, magnetic, America's model husband. But inside, he was wrecked. Brando scarred him, McQueen burned him, Redford erased him, Dean haunted him. Newman moved through life wearing an immaculate mask, and beneath it, he was crumbling. That's when Sal appeared, not at a studio party, not under bright lights, but inside a therapist's office in West Hollywood on a rain-soaked afternoon, where secrets finally had nowhere left to hide. Joanne, always patient, gently pushed Paul toward counseling, hoping he might finally breathe again. She didn't pry, she didn't accuse, she just wanted him to survive himself. And there, sitting across the waiting room one rain-soaked afternoon, was Sal Mineo. Hollywood once crowned him the next James Dean, then crushed him just as fast. Too soft, too open, too unwilling to pretend for people who demanded masks. The same machine that built him tore him down. Studios turned away quietly. Whispers about his desires hardened into rumors. Then roles dried up. Invitations stopped. He was labeled a liability and left behind. They spoke at first like strangers, not lovers, not even friends, just two men who recognized the same exhaustion in each other's eyes. After therapy sessions, they wandered side streets under light drizzle, coats pulled tight, words unnecessary. It wasn't conversation they needed, it was silence. the rare comfort of being understood. One evening, paused under a flickering neon sign, Newman finally asked, "Are you sick too?" Mineo smiled faintly, touched his temple and whispered, "Not sick, just trying to unlearn what the world told me was a disease." From that moment, something gentle began to grow. No chaos, no scandals, no danger chasing them, just small moments. A note slipped into Newman's pocket. "If they call you broken, let me be broken with you." Newman kept it in his wallet like a quiet prayer. Mineo once left a cassette on Paul's doorstep. Nothing dramatic, just a single piano melody recorded at home. Newman played it alone late at night, long after the house went silent. There were plans too. Venice, a script Mineo had written about two men clinging to each other in a drowning city as the water rose. For the first time in years, Newman imagined a different life. Quiet, honest, without cameras or lies. But Hollywood doesn't let men like Sal Mineo dream for long. One February night after rehearsal, Mineo never made it inside his apartment. A shadow moved in the alley. A blade flashed, once, twice. Police called it a robbery. Papers called it tragedy. But among friends, the whispers never stopped. They said it wasn't random. They said it was punishment. A warning to anyone who dared to live too openly. When Newman heard, he vanished, locked himself away. Friends said he spent nights on the rooftop, chain-smoking beneath the stars, staring at the city like he expected Sal to step out of the dark. He never spoke Sal's name aloud again, but Joanne once found a handkerchief folded in his drawer, stitched with Sal's initials. On a tape said to be recorded years later, his voice finally broke. "I thought I was saving him, but Sal saved me. He showed me love didn't have to be loud or cruel or hidden. He only asked me to be myself, and I never got to thank him." The next shadow in Newman's hidden life was Montgomery Clift. Newman once said, voice trembling like it carried a lifetime, "I thought nothing could break me, until Monty." Their connection wasn't built on chaos or spectacle, it was built on wounds. Two men who looked perfect under studio lights while quietly falling apart in the dark. Their bond grew not just from closeness, but from shared pain. Letters passed quietly, confessions written when speaking felt impossible. And that story was darker than anyone ever imagined, scrawled in blue ink, words shaking across the page like they weighed 100 pounds each, half confession, half plea. Monty once wrote, "I don't need you to choose me, I just need you not to pretend I don't exist." These weren't love letters, they were survival notes, fragments of truth too fragile for Hollywood to ever allow. And then, one of those letters vanished. Some said it was taken by an assistant desperate to climb. Others whispered it was planted on purpose. A blade slid straight into Newman's ribs by someone who wanted him exposed. Within weeks, gossip columns circled like vultures. Headlines danced around the truth. No names, just enough sharp edges to draw blood. For the first time, America's golden husband looked human. Vulnerable? Joanne didn't need the papers. One night she found an opened envelope slipped beneath her pillow. Monty's words stared back at her. She didn't yell, she didn't argue. She left one line behind. "If you choose lies, don't ask me to live inside them." Then came the collapse. Newman unraveled, not because Hollywood whispered, but because the two lives he tried to balance were both breaking. The wife who trusted him, the man who begged him not to disappear. Friends said Newman vanished for days, hotels under false names, cabins with curtains drawn. A housekeeper once claimed she watched him burn letters in the fireplace, feeding pages into the flames until dawn. Doctors appeared quietly. Prescriptions slipped into unmarked bottles. Newman never explained. He didn't have to. Meanwhile, Monty spiraled alone in New York. Pills, isolation, a body carrying every wound and secret. Then the phone rang. Newman answered. Monty's voice cracked on the other end. "I can't be your shadow anymore. I can't live like this." Newman begged, promised everything, said he'd stop hiding, stop lying, go public, no matter the cost. There was a pause, then silence. The line went dead. Weeks later, whispers spread. Monty had been found unconscious. An ambulance, a hospital bed. He lived, but he never spoke to Newman again. That was worse than death. It was exile, erasure. Years passed. Newman smiled for cameras, raced cars, played roles. The world adored him. Inside, he bled quietly. When the final call came, Monty was gone. Alone in his house, his body worn down. Newman shattered. Some said he screamed, threw glass against the walls until it shattered. Others swore he didn't move at all, just sat frozen, staring at his hands. One rumor claimed he kept a single item hidden in his desk, a lighter engraved with Monty's initials. No one ever dared ask. Others whispered that on certain nights, after too much whiskey, Newman would drive for hours, headlights cutting into the dark, ending up outside cemeteries with the engine still running. What is certain is what Newman later confessed on tape. "I thought I was strong, but I was a coward. I only knew how to love in silence." The tape didn't end with closure. It ended the same way their story did, with silence, heavy, suffocating. 6 names, 6 secrets, 6 shadows Newman carried to his grave. Some were storms of betrayal, some were fires of obsession, some were tender sorrows, too fragile for daylight. Together, they formed a story Hollywood could never print. To the world, Newman was flawless, the perfect husband, the untouchable star. But behind the golden mask was a truth as old as time. Even legends are human. They bleed, they break, they long for things they're told they can't have. In that era, longing like Newman's wasn't just forbidden, it was dangerous. The golden age of Hollywood was built on illusion, a dream factory controlling contracts, careers, and lives. Smiles rehearsed like lines, magazines sculpted by publicists, and one unspoken rule ruled them all. Men could not love men, not if they wanted fame, family, or a future. That's what makes these whispers haunting. They aren't just rumors about one man. They're echoes of an entire generation forced into silence. Glances instead of confessions. Letters instead of promises. Love stories erased before they could be spoken. Newman gave the world brilliance on screen. Off screen, he carried a weight he could never share. Imagine being praised as America's perfect husband, while your heart beats to rhythms you can't admit. Writing letters you can't send, mourning losses you can't name. He wasn't alone. Behind Hollywood's polished past were countless stories just like his. Stories of survival, hiding, and perfect facades cracking in the dark. Maybe that's why these confessions, fact or myth, still endure. Because they remind us that perfection is an illusion. What lasts are the battles we hide, the courage it takes to keep going, the love that still tries to exist, even in fear. Paul Newman's films will live forever. His charities will keep changing lives. But his hidden list, real or rumored, leaves another legacy. A reminder that even icons have shadows. And sometimes it's the shadows that make the light unforgettable. So what do you think? Were these confessions truth, myth, or something in between? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video, share it with someone who loves Hollywood secrets. Subscribe to RumorFame for more stories they never wanted told. And trust us, the next name on the list is coming. See you on the next one.